So I owe you guys a ramble. At first I was celebrating milestones on this channel in the decimal system, you know. Every 100 subscribers I would do something special. Then it turned into every 1,000. Then I started celebrating other things like 1,000,000 views on the channel. Then I celebrated 1,000 dislikes, and then 10,000 dislikes on my channel on videos. I celebrated making $1,000 total lifetime on Patreon. I celebrated a lot of things in decimal. So the fact that I'm celebrating this number is a little weird because it's not in decimal, and it doesn't have to do with anybody else on this platform. I do measure myself against other people that I was in the same little niche with years ago, just to see how much this channel is progressing versus other channels of the same nature, well, back in the day. I've kind of branched off into my own little, like, world, I guess, with these rambles. And sometimes a lot of people don't follow me from one thing to another. You know, they subscribe for one set of stories that I'm doing, and then they're like, this guy, he doesn't just do that one thing that I like. So, a lot of my subscribers don't watch my shit. And I find that that's true of a lot of Rambler YouTubers. You know, you collect these thousands of subscribers that never fucking watch you. That's YouTube for you, right? And I don't know what a healthy ratio is of, you know, how many subscribers you have versus how many people are actually watching you. But I can tell you that the ratio gets worse over time for all the YouTubers. And the older the YouTuber, the worse the ratio will be. So all two of you that are watching this, you're in for a treat. I'm going to explain 12,024. So the year was 1996, and I had moved away from my parents, and I was putting myself through my final year of high school, right? Living on my own. And I had a job. And that was the main reason why I moved out of my parents' place, was because I could not maintain my job and continue to go home every night, because my parents lived out in the boonies, and I didn't have great transportation, so I needed to live really close to my work if I was going to have a job. So I picked a trailer park that was very close to where I was finishing my high school and where I worked. Now, the job I got, not the first job that I had, mind you, that was boot shining on Fort Huachuca. The job I got was at the local newspaper, and I got it because my friend Dan wouldn't take no for an answer. They had job postings in their own newspaper, right? And you would go up to the front of the front office of the newspaper, and they'd have you fill out this application, then they'd just file it away, right? And so, what Dan did, when we both went and filled out an application, he's like, no, fuck no. We're going around back to talk to the actual managers, right? And that's what we did. And had he not stuck his foot in the door like that, I never would have had that job. Because the manager was like, yeah, I need some more people. Why aren't they hiring you right now? You know, you've got hands, you've got a pulse, let's go. you know. And I had this job for about 9 months before I joined the Army, right? Another story altogether. But for 9 months, I was on the inserting crew of a printing press. And I read the newspaper every day because I worked at the newspaper as part of the process of actually building a newspaper. After all of the pieces of the newspaper were printed, the A section, the B section, the C section, they all had to be assembled together with a machine called the inserting machine. And that's what I would work on. And first, I learned to just rifle papers and be part of the team in a fashion that reminds people a lot of a centipede. You know, the first bit of the newspaper, the A section, goes down the line, and then the B section gets put in, then the C section, then the D section, and at every step, there's somebody who has to rifle the papers, right? Make sure that there's a flat edge, and then stack it so that the machine can pull the bottom one, and stack it perfectly with a perfectly flat edge, right? And so you learn how to rifle paper really well. There's actually an art to doing it, right? And next to every insertion point, there's a little rifling table, and you'd rifle the paper and put it in. I'm not certain that most large newspapers do it that way these days, because the machine that I was working with seemed to be from like the 40s or 50s, you know, and that was the 90s, so maybe everything's gotten better, or maybe, you know, by the time you're watching this, newspapers will have died off completely in their physical form, and the only thing left will be just digital newspapers, digital news sources. Every 25 papers, which was an arbitrary number that you could set at will, every 25 papers the machine would mark one of those newspapers with a spray of water. Just a quick little psst. And so you would see the 25th paper, or whatever number that you set, and you'd be able to scoop, which we called flying, fly the newspaper in stacks of 25 when it came out the end of the machine. So those stacks would go through a bundle strapper, and then the person who was running the bundle strapper, which would put that plastic bundle strapping around, and then had a little heat gun on the bottom, and would actually cut it for you. All you had to do was hit a button and it would strap it for you. It was an amazing machine. The person running that bundle strapper had to be really good at math that was based on the number 25, because he would be bundle strapping for a paperboy. That paperboy might have 63 people on the route, right? So he had to bundle strap 63 newspapers by quickly taking one of those stacks of 25 and doing math, you know, figure out how many of that stack he'd have to add to 2 stacks of 25 in order to make that number, and then he'd take the spares and put them on in a pile right next to his bundle strapper, so that way he, you know, if it was like 54 papers for the next paperboy, he'd just take 4 off that spares pile and put it on top, and then, you know, put their order sheet on, then bundle strap, and then, you know, off it went. And there were people who had the job of using their own personal vehicles as contractors to deliver bundles to other newspaper boys. And some of these people They worked on the printing press or the inserting crew. Then they would load their car, because they had that job too as a contractor. And then they would go home, and then they had their own paper route. After dropping off bundles to other paper boys, they themselves would have a paper route. So they had like 3 jobs with the same company. That was not me, or Dan. Dan was a really good bundle strapper, really good at math based on the number 25, and I was really good at rifling paper and zoning out for hours at a time. Maybe listening to music off of a boombox, but you couldn't really hear the music that well over the sound of the machine. And when there was no music, the sound of that machine, it was just a monotonous hum. In the key of E, by the way, the hum was horrible. It was like an enforced Taoist chant, like the Om, only you don't want to Om, you want to work, I would watch thousands of newspapers go past my face every night until the job was done, right? And of course, if something were to happen, like the machine breaking down and we had to hand stuff all the newspapers, I would get overtime, so I'd be a little happy that I would be able to make a little extra money. But at the same time, it was at the cost of, my freedom and my free time. And I wasn't getting paid that much. When I started working there, minimum wage was $4.25. That's $4.25. But I say it in the form of $4.25 for the assonance, so that you realize what I'm saying. $4.25 sounds like it goes together. Like $4.25 goes together, because there is a saying, $4.25, right? By the time I left that job, after 9 months, I'd only gotten a 5-cent raise for sometimes being the manager of the inserting crew at 18 years old, which that was very short-lived before I quit that job and joined the Army. But years later, the minimum wage rose again, and the minimum wage was 5 and a dime. Listen to what I'm saying again. 5 and a dime. The assonance of, like, the I sounds. 5 and a dime. Just like the or sounds of 4.25. I got the feeling through that era of minimum wage hikes that the assonance of the amounts that the hike would go to next was in order to make people think that the wage should be stuck there for a while. Just because it rolls off the tongue. Like, of course, everybody knows minimum wage is 4.25. It's only fair. It's 4.25. Rolls right off the tongue. Same thing with 5 and a dime. It's a new era. We're all gonna be making 5 and a dime. None of this 4.25 shit anymore. For years to come, we're gonna be making 5 and a dime. We're gonna be making bank. Some of you, like, millennials that are watching this video, or anyone who's watching in the future, will be like, what are you talking about? That's pitiful. Just remember, I'm talking about the 90s. Okay? Yeah, inflation happens. Minimum wage increases happen. And years later, I've come to embrace some of the lessons I've learned from the numbers that I saw, right? And through all of that hum, that E major hum, as thousands of newspapers went by my face, as I would stack a couple hundred of some flyer for some pizza company that wanted to become popular, into one section of the paper, and it would get sucked in the ads that were going in the business section, and I would be able to stack, about 100 to 200, because there was a sweet spot. If there wasn't enough weight on the bottom ones, they would all get sucked in together, right? And they would jam up the machine. And if there was too much weight, it wouldn't suck at all. The grabbers would go and would not be able to suck the bottom one out. So you had to really keep the stack, from one size to another size in this sweet spot. And during that time, I would just read the paper as I was watching, piece after piece of the paper go into the machine, And as soon as it got down to a certain amount, I'd just have to set my paper down, rifle up some more of that ad or paper or section of the newspaper that was going in, and set it and forget it until it got down to that certain point again. 12,024 was the entire run for the small town that I was living in. And sometimes I wondered, we're doing this 12,024 times, and all these advertisers, they really believe that 12,024 times this flyer is going to be in the hands of someone. 12,024 flyers of our company in the hands of other people. And that's not how it works. That's not how it works. Really, out of the 12,024, how many of them, the newspapers we were making, just ended up lining the bottom of a birdcage and getting shit on and never really seeing any human eyes? How many of them were turned to the funnies section, just read for the funnies or the horoscope or the Dave Barry or Dear Abby, How many of them were just read for that, or the opinion section, the editorial that was, brought in from Associated Press, and they didn't read anything else. How many of them were being underutilized? And the parallel that I have for that today is something that I can actually measure with numbers. How many of my YouTube subscribers don't watch my shit? They're subscribed. It's free, though, but back in the day when I was on that printing press and inserting crew, people had to pay a quarter for each of those papers. How many people were just paying that quarter day after day, not realizing that, they could just as easily not pay for that paper? It's the same as subscription services that I've talked about in previous videos this week. How many people don't realize that if they just didn't opt into subscription services, their bank account would grow significantly more each month, if they weren't subscribed to their local gym that they never go use, that they weren't subscribed to Office 365 that they're not using this month. If they weren't subscribed to charity things, if they weren't subscribed to Patreon, how many people just get nickeled and dimed to death, and they do so kind of obliviously, just forget that they're even subscribed to things, or feel like that's what they should be doing. You get better coverage for news these days from free news sites than you do the local news. Used to be local news heroes, the big shots that that now they're hiding their content behind paywalls, and they want you to subscribe, not pay per article that you want to read. Of the 3 that you might read in a year, they want you to subscribe to unlock everything, and they'll compare the price of what you subscribe to a cup of coffee. It's just a pittance. It's like $5. You can't even buy Starbucks for that little amount, each month. That's all it takes. And then people subscribe, forget they're subscribed, get sucked in their wallet by another little tentacle sucker from that digital content aggregator, and they prop up a business that's dying, that keeps on firing its reporters, that looks towards technology that can write an article quicker than a human can, and doesn't need any human interaction whatsoever. Oh, something happened? Let's take 3 or 4 things from the past and aggregate them all into an article and say, this is a developing story, and just be so formulaic that once it passes the editor's desk, they're like, yep, looks about right for our newspaper. Another thing that I brought out for this video, it's another part of my life. Almost 20 years later, after I left that printing press, and after I left the Army, and after I left the Electricians Union, I started a business, and I had a bunch of different companies pitch to my business different ways to advertise, right? And I don't know if Comcast, who I went with for my phone and internet access, or some site where I registered the business for tax purposes. I don't know who it was, but they got my information out to everyone. Like, all the people who would want to sell you crap that you don't need, keep their fingers on the pulse of what businesses are new and have new investor money, And they play the game of within 1 year this business will fail statistically, right? 99% of businesses will fail in a year. So around the 6-month point, they're drying up of funds, and they're realizing that they didn't go into it with a big enough war chest. So if you're going to make money off of them, you need to hit them before they know that they're going to fail, right? You need to hit them hard and fast and say, buy our keychains with your company and logo on them, and buy our poster that goes on the side of people's fridge that has like a calendar for the local high school football team, and has Domino's pizza and coupons and all this other stuff that will make the magnet poster attractive, and if you don't buy this magnet poster, you're going to be a failure. It'd be stupid of you to not buy our pens with your business's name engraved on the side. Our knives create customers that keep coming back, and just have your company's name engraved on the side. Get our flashlight keychain fob, it's great for when you want to raffle stuff off in a prize at your work, and all sorts of crap. But after going through that with a new business, I'd say the absolute worst of all of the false advertising that I saw was from advertising on TV and radio. So, when I reached out to see what places I could advertise with that would get more foot traffic for my business, I had a couple of people come personally to my place of business and give me their spiel, right? Some of them from CBS, some of them from ABC, some of them from NBC. All the local news affiliates wanted my money, right? And each of them had packages that were around a couple $1,000s, and just like a wedding ring should cost like 3 months' pay. There's that rule that De Beers put out there and drilled into people's heads. 3 months' pay is how much you should pay for a wedding ring, right? They want you to take like 2% of your annual estimated revenue and spend that on advertising with TV, right? That's what they expect. Just like if you were to walk into a diamond store, they're like, "What do you mean you're not thinking about spending 3 months' pay? Fucking get out of here!" Of course, our price is 3 months' pay. Everybody knows this, right? Well, apparently, everybody also knows that it's like 2% of your annual estimated retail that you should be spending on advertising with TV, right? It's bullshit, but I got packages that were pitched to me from Comcast Spotlight, right? The cable company, and I saved all this shit so I could make this video in some rambly fashion. But they would really hype up how their cable service was like the top advertising place to go. And I don't even know what this reach number means, reach percentage and all that. But basically they were comparing Xfinity from Comcast, right? KRDO, Fox News, KKTV, the local newspaper, and Fandango.com. Basically, just so you could get a sense of what their ads could do for you versus other people's websites. Now, if you were to buy a cable advertising package where you're spending $2,000 a month, you could also get it from Comcast. You could get put on their homepage, and they have these statistics of how many people would start up their computer and the homepage from Comcast would be there because they had their Comcast email account that they were using. And so to get to it, they'd have to go to the Comcast homepage. who uses Comcast for their fucking email account, right? But they had numbers to say, look, this is how many people would see your ad as they're trying to log into their email, right? And their numbers were astronomically high, and they'd say, we have the largest reach of any sort of website in the area, and we can target ads to actually individual neighborhoods. That's how good our technology is, by sending not just your TV ads, but your internet little pop-up ads. We'll send them to just neighborhoods that you pick, and they'd make it sound like, yes, we can get your message in front of people, right? I got this bunch of stuff from KRDO, which was a AM radio station. Now, because of the type of thing that I had for a business in that year, which was a giant antiques market, where I was leasing out the larger space and letting other booth vendors sublease from me. This radio station, KRDO, thought that I was like the perfect fit for them because their age demographics for AM radio were the same as, people who go to antiques markets, right? I listened to their spiel, and what they said was, this was the coverage. Sorry, I had to restart the camera. What they said was, this was their coverage map, right? And I would reach the most number of people possible with this AM radio station, because everybody had access to it, right? And they would say, in this area, this many people live, and you'll reach all of them. No. Thing is, even, 4 years ago, nobody was listening to AM radio, right? It's not that popular. People are putting in their own MP3 players in their fucking cars and only listening to MP3s and not listening to commercials at all. Nowadays, they might put on Pandora, or they might be listening to satellite radio. Nobody is listening to AM radio if they can help it, right? Unless they're like fanatic right-wing conservative people who are only listening during a certain time of the day for Hannity or Rush Limbaugh or whatnot. Nobody is listening to AM radio, right? But they'll sell me those ads and say, oh yes, that'll create foot traffic for me. And they act as if the number of people that their station could possibly reach is their actual presence in the world. Just like the newspaper I worked for, 12,024 subscribers, right, to that newspaper. How many people were actually reading a thing? And yet this newspaper sold ads to businesses that were trying to succeed. And I saw business after business after business fold because they didn't have foot traffic, right? Two of the stations that came to me wanting to put ads for my business on the news because they thought that the news demographic was good for a store like mine. Two of them were CBS Channel 11 and Fox Channel 21. Notice anything similar about these two things? These two packages right here? They took the logo off my website, right? and put it smack dab in the middle of their printed thing. They've got a blue bar there, right? This one's got a little green, right? They've got their logo for their station. I mean, it's pretty much the same goddamn pitch. You know, bound the same way and everything. I was like, did business majors from the same school end up at different companies, you know, competitors, and because they had the same teacher, end up making very similar pitch things? Or is there one company making these bound pitch binders that's selling to everyone, even competitors of each other? I don't know. But this is very interesting. Like, the similarities don't stop at the front pages. I marked with a card so I can get to that page quicker. One of the sales pitches, the one from Channel 11 CBS, had this pitch that involved the bucket theory, right? The bucket theory says, don't spread your advertising money thin amongst too many buckets. What you want to do is put all of your money into one bucket and see if it works, right? And then you try that bucket plus the bucket next to it. And you put a lot of money in that one and see if it works, right? That's the best way to advertise, right? Of course, they want you to start with their bucket, right? This is the one from Fox 21, all right? Again, marked with a card so I can find it quickly. This is the glass theory. You don't want to put all of your money into just one, into all the glasses. You want to, like, pick two and, like, dominate them, right? And, of course, start with them, right? I'm looking at these pitches right next to each other, and I'm like, what the hell? You know? It was like, when you can see people trying to sell you crap, example after example after example, the similarities just kind of bubble to the surface, and you can see the bullshit really for what it is, you know? After the first guy who pitched me, and I didn't bite, when I heard the second guy's pitch, and the third guy's pitch, and the fourth guy's pitch, and I started hearing the same similar things, especially the part where they'd put the little twist in, where they would insult me and say, you'd be stupid to not jump on this opportunity, you know? Or, if you don't want your business to fail, you better jump on this soon, you know? This is what everyone's doing, you know? How much can I sign you up for? You know, they always get a pen in your hand and have their contract, like, right underneath. Before you've even heard half their spiel, they're just trying to get into there, like, of course you want to sign up with us, right? They would fucking get you that close. Like, shit or get off the pot, dude. Shit or get off the pot. You know? Don't waste our time. You know? After about 6 months of my store being open, I started getting a second round of advertising. And that advertising was more bent on, you need a loan, right? We've got this innovative way to get you thousands of dollars that your business needs for a good injection of capital, right? promises of like tens of thousands of dollars, you know, and everyone would be accepted pretty much. And I actually did choose one to try to go with. I investigated it, and what they wanted to do was take out the credit card machine from my business and replace it with theirs. So after they give the loan, they get money back first, right? Basically, your money that goes through the credit card machine of your own business doesn't go to your bank anymore. It goes to pay off your loan first, and then goes to your bank after they get their cut first. So that's the terms of their loan, is you have to physically start using their credit card machines, right? I didn't end up going with that. You know, I did try throwing everything at my business, like everything in the kitchen sink, you know, completely every bit of money that I had before it failed. I tried my hardest, and I look back and I'm at least proud that I did not hold anything back, you know. Which some would say is stupid. You know, you should see a sinking ship for what it is and just close up shop while you still have some your shirt on your back, you know. And I had a lot of those naysayers, you know, whispering in my ear like the first month we were in business. You know. Oh, look, you don't have immediate foot traffic. Looks like your business is a failure. Better shut up. Shut your doors. I'm like, what? I just opened them. Yeah. Another parallel that I draw from all of this, like a whole lifetime of looking at numbers that are fake, you know, and people pitching things that are fake. It's the traveling circus of bloggers in the niche on YouTube that I was in, right? So there was the YouTubers who had verified numbers. You know, every view that you get comes from a viewer, unless, of course, you're like faking it, paying for it. But all those comments are from real people and whatnot. And if you were to take the niche that I was in here on YouTube, all the talking heads that were talking about the same thing, and take the top 100 of them, right? Go all the way down the list to like number 100. That person was getting more web traffic than most of the bloggers who were on speaking tours selling their books, who had blogs, who never posted actual web traffic to their blog. They didn't have like view tickers on their blog. And what's interesting is some YouTubers that have dealt with this revelation of these bloggers looking down on YouTubers as though, you know, of course the written word typed out is worth way more than a video ever could be. You know, of course we are so much more elite than you and studious and academic. Some YouTubers have seen, like, holy shit. Once I stopped being a part of that blog and actually just did my own craft again, I'm getting tens, if not hundreds of times more web traffic than that blog that tried to get me to go be a part of them, you know? And they were treating me as if, you know, I was so lucky to be a part of them. You know, I should bow down and be, you know, thank my lucky stars that they would anoint me as possibly somebody that's good enough for their speaking tour, and I could go around and sell my own book, that I self-published, and I have to buy my own stack of books from that publisher in order to sell them one by one to the people who think that I'm a bigger shit in the world than I really am. I really feel like for a good portion of time, the niche that I hung out with on YouTube was very slanted towards, believing that some of these people were far bigger than they actually were, And that's what I find refreshing about YouTube. It's that there are some numbers that don't lie. Yeah, you can have someone buy fake likes and fake up thumbs and down thumbs, but you can even see some fake views being bought, right? That's not sustainable, and the people who make videos day after day, just rambling like I am right now, and have an audience that either makes videos back or leaves genuine comments that you can tell come from real people. That's the realness of this platform that I enjoy so much. The 100 of you that might actually watch this gigantically long ramble that it's turned out to be right now, you guys are the reason why I keep doing this, And if you think about it, there are churches just down the road from me, little hole-in-the-wall churches, that a pastor will have maybe 20 people, in his pews, and he might have them there for an hour or two, and my watch time is actually equitable to the amount of watch time that pastor's getting every Sunday. I'm probably getting better amount of watch time than that pastor who's just a leech on society, And I'm giving out what I'm saying for free, and there are people that enjoy it. And I like it a lot better that way. I think we've gone on long enough.